So this is Unit 8, Section 1, and this unit's over volume, but first we're going to cover area because area is going to be used when we're solving for volume. So our first slide here is on area. What does it mean? Area is the measure of how much space there is on a flat surface. And when we're talking about a flat surface, we're talking about two-dimensional objects. So they go this way and this way. That's two-dimensional. And when we talk about two-dimensional objects, we have a unit here, and feet here. So when we do this, we also should notice that when we do feet times feet, that gives us feet squared. So anytime we have a unit for this and its area, it's also going to be squared. So first thing we're going to talk about are squares. And the formula for square, if you look on your formula sheet, there is no formula on the formula sheet for square, but a square is rectangle. And the formula for a rectangle is base times height. Well, what we know about a square is that all four sides are congruent. So that means when we multiply a side times a side, that's going to be side squared. So the area of a square is the side squared. So here we have a square. It says given the square with following sides, find the area of each square. So here we know that the base is 4 and the height is 4. And so we can say here that 4 times 4 is 16, or 4 squared is 16. The next one has 12 here. And again, when we look at this, if our base is 12, that means our height is also 12. So again, we're going to say 12 times 12 is 144. On this last one, we have S is the side. And again, all four sides are congruent because a square is both a rectangle and a rhombus. So all four sides are the same. So we know that this is also S. So again, we're going to multiply S times S, and anything times itself is that item squared. So this is S times S, which is S squared. Now, when we talk about the area of a rectangle, in the bottom left-hand side of your formula sheet, you will find the formulas for area of a rectangle. And on this formula sheet, it says base times height. That's what B and H stand for. What we learned what you guys learned when you were younger was length times width. But we're going to talk about base times height here. So when we look at this rectangle here, we have our base is 9 and our height is 4. So we're going to do 9 times 4, and that's 36. Again, we have another rectangle here. It says given a rectangle with the following sides, find the area of each square. So again, we have our base here 12 and our height here x. And we know that all of these angles are right angles. And height in any object is going to be a perpendicular to the base up to the highest point of the object. So this is going to be 12x. Okay, so now let's talk about this. It says formula for the area of a parallelogram. Now again, this formula is not on your formula sheet. So we're going to take this triangle over here on the right, this triangle over here, and we're going to pick it up and we're going to move it over to the right. And now you'll notice that we have a rectangle. So again, we have the base and we have the height. And our height, again, is going to be a perpendicular segment from the base up to the peak of the opposite side, or the highest point of the opposite side. So when we look at the area of a parallelogram, it's going to be base times height. So let's look at this drawing right here. And what we need to notice here when we look at this is that we have a base, and that's our 8 here, and then we have a height. Again, this is a perpendicular from the base, and it goes all the way up to the highest point of the opposite side. So then this is our height. So our base is 8 and our height is 3. So we're going to do 8 times 3. And that's going to give us 24. Now this one says given a parallelogram with a base of 10 and a height of 4, find the area. So on this one, we're given that the base is 10 and that the height is 4. So we are going to draw the height here. Again, right angle. This is 4. So we're going to do 10 times 4, and that's 40. So on this next one, it says, given a parallelogram with the following sides, find the area. Well, we can see that our base here is 3 plus 9, that's 12, but we do not have the height here. So we have to ask ourselves, is there a way for us to find the height? If you guys notice right here, this again is a right triangle over here. So we're going to draw a right triangle here, and then we can use our Pythagorean's theorem to solve for the missing side. So we know that this is C because it's the hypotenuse opposite the right angle. And then we have our side 3 at the bottom, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we make that a or b. So we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we're going to do our 3 squared here plus our b squared, which is going to be our height, equals our c squared. 3 squared is 9, and 5 squared is 25. We're going to subtract the 9 from the 25. That gives us 16. We're going to take the square root of both of these sides here. And when we do that, that gives us that b is 4. So our height over here is 4. So now we're going to multiply our base times our height. Our base is 12, and our height is 4. So base times height, 12 times 4 is 48. So here's our next one. Now this one is a little different. Again, we have a right triangle over here. This is our height over here. Now what I notice is that this angle down here is 45. So 90 minus 45, that means this up here has to be 45. Well, if those two angles are 45 and 45, then I know that this is an isosceles right triangle and that our legs are congruent. So that means that both of these are 5. So now we have our base again. Our base down here is 3 plus 5, which is 18. It's also up here, 18. And we're going to multiply that by our height. 18 times 5, which is going to give us 90. All right, so now, area of a triangle. This is also on your formula sheet on the bottom left-hand side. On your formula sheet it says 1/2 base times height. Well, the way I like to do it is do base times height divided by 2, because usually I can do that in my head. But you can do it whichever way you prefer. So now again, when we look at this triangle here, we have our base, which is 10. That's this measure right down here. Then we have our height. Again, this is a perpendicular to the base up to the peak of the opposite angle. So this is 7. So we're going to do base 10 times 7 height and divided by 2. That's 70 divided by 2. And that is 35. Okay, our next one. Now this one's a little bit different. In this drawing, we have our base here. I think everybody can see that that's our base. But we notice that we're going to find our height by extending this base out to the right. And then we're going to draw a perpendicular to that highest point again. So this time to find our height is outside our shape. So our base is 6, our height is 4, 6 times 4, divide that by 2, 24 divided by 2 is 12. All right, now, for example 5C, it says the area of a triangle. It says find the area of the triangle. So on this one, again, we have our base is 7, but we do not have our height. And again, we know this is our height because it's the one that's perpendicular to the base. So we have to find this measure over here so that we can find the area of the triangle. So to do this again, we're going to determine what do we have in this right triangle. We have the hypotenuse because 25 is the hypotenuse, so that's going to be our C. We could make 7 our A or B, but so again, we're going to use our formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to do 7 is A and 25 as C. So we're going to square our 7, that's 49. We're going to square 25, that's 625. We're going to subtract the 49 from the 625. That gives us 576. And again here, we're going to take square root of both sides. When we do that, we get that B is equal to 24. So our height is 24. So now we have that our base is 7 and our height is 24. 7 times 24 is 168. We're going to divide that number by 2, which gives us 84. On this problem, now this is the one, if any of them are going to trip you up, it's going to be this one. So when we talk about this problem, we're going to draw a perpendicular bisector to the angle up here and to this side down here. So I'm going to draw a dashed line, and I'm going to show you this perpendicular. So I'm going to bisect this angle up here. So these two angles right here are congruent, and I'm going to bisect this side. So when I do that, that means that this side over here is congruent to this side over here, which also means that I'm going to cut that 8 in half. So that means this measure over here is 4, and this measure over here is 4. Now, prior to this, I did not have the height, and I had no way to find the height. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use Pythagorean's theorem again to solve for the height. So again, we can see that this is our hypotenuse over here. So that's going to be our C. We're going to make 4 our A. So we're going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that's 4 squared plus b squared equals 5 squared. That's 16 plus b squared equals 25. Subtract the 16 from both sides. We're going to take the square root again of both sides of this. So that gives us that b is equal to 3. And that is our height right here. So once we have that, then we can multiply our base, which is 8, times our height, which is 3, and divide that by 2, which gives us 12. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12. All right, again, this problem is similar to the last one. So when we do this problem, again, we see that this vertical up here, this right here, is a perpendicular to the base, which means that this is a perpendicular bisector. So when we solve for half of this triangle, we can then find the other base of it as well. So again, we have to talk about what parts do we have. Both of these are right angles here, so that means this is the hypotenuse again, and 2 radical 7 is one of the legs. So we can do 8 squared for C and 2 square root of 7 for A. Now what I need you to remember is when we do this, we are going to distribute this 2 to both of these numbers. So this is going to end up being 2 square root of 7 squared, which is equal to 2 squared times square root of 7 squared. That's going to be 4, because 2 squared is 4, times, and when we do this, these two things cancel each other out. That's 7. So that number is going to end up being 28. So this is going to end up being 28 right here when we're all said and done, and this is going to be 64. So we're going to subtract 28 from 64. That means b squared is equal to 36. Once again, we're going to take the square root of both sides. Square root of 36 is 6. Now this is where this is going to become important, that we put these tick marks here, because that means this over here is 6 and this over here is 6, which means the whole base of this triangle is 12, because we got to add these together. And this is the most common error, when people don't add those 6 and 6 together to get the 12. So our base is 12 and our height is 2 radical 7, so we're going to multiply 12 times 2. That gives us 24 radical 7 divided by 2 is 12 radical 7. And if we multiply that 12 times the radical 7, we get 31.75. All right, now area of a circle. This formula is also down there on the bottom left of your formula sheet under where it says area. And what we need to talk about is what is a radius here. So when we talk about radius, we're talking about the point from the center of the circle to the side. Now when we talk about the diameter, we're talking about the line that goes all the way through the center of the circle to the sides. Now the way a diameter relates to a radius is we've got 2 radiuses here, if you notice, from here and here. So the diameter is 2 times the radius. Or if we have the diameter and we're trying to find the radius, we have to divide that diameter by 2 to get the radius. Okay, so now let's talk about this problem. In this problem, we have that our radius is 10.5. Now, what I want you guys to write on your paper right now is that we always want to square the radius first. Now, the reason I say that is because we're always going to get 2 answers for these problems. One of the answers will have pi in it. The other one will be after we've multiplied by pi. So when we populate this formula, area equals pi r squared, we're going to say that 10.5 squared, we're going to do that part first, and then we're going to add pi to it. So our answer for 10.5 squared is 110.25 pi. That's one of our answers. Now, the second answer we're going to do by multiplying by pi. And for those of you that don't know, on the calculators, pi is below the clear button. You push second and then that caret button, which looks like this. The caret button looks like, yeah, that wasn't a very good drawing of it. It basically looks like this. That's the caret symbol, and it's below the clear button. So you're going to push second and pi. And what I need you guys to also understand is we don't use 3.14 unless we're told to use 3.14. We typically use what pi is in the calculator. All right, so this time in this problem, again, we're just asking us to find the area of the circle. This time we're given the diameter. So the first thing we have to do to find the radius, because that's what we need is r for this formula, is we're going to divide that diameter by 2. That gives us 12.4. And again, I told you to go ahead and square this number first. So 12.4 squared is 153.76 pi. Now, the reason I keep telling you to do this like this is because sometimes the answers on tests are going to have pi in them and sometimes they're not. So you're going to have to be able to do both ways. So leave pi in the answer and then multiply the answer by pi. And you should also notice here that our unit is squared. And that's because, again, it's area. Anytime we have area, we're going to square the unit. So go ahead and do these next two problems on your own and then come back to me. So here this says the radius of this one is 3 centimeters. So we're going to square again the radius, which is 9. So one of our answers is going to be 9 pi. And then when I multiply 9 times pi, I get 28.27. And again, it's centimeters squared because it's area. This next one is another one with diameter. So when we have the diameter, the way the radius relates to the diameter, it's half of the diameter. So we're going to divide 10 by 2. That gives us 5 for the radius. So once again, we're going to square that number first. So we're going to get 5 squared times pi. That's going to be 25 pi. Then we're going to multiply pi times 25, and that gives us 78.54. Now this next problem, it's the area of a circle. Now we're going to go ahead and use our formula for area of a circle. Area equals pi r squared. And then we're going to take this, it says that that's our area, so we're going to go ahead and plug that 256 pi into the problem. And you should immediately see that we got pi on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and divide by pi here. And we're going to divide by pi here. That means pi's gone from there and it's gone from there. So we're left with 256 is equal to r squared. When we're trying to get r by itself, we have to recall that we have to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 256, when you do it in your calculator, is 16. So the answer here for r is 16. The next one is similar, but a little bit different. So let's go ahead and look at it. This one says, again, that we're given that the area of the circle is 96 feet. So this time we're going to put 96 over here, and that's equal to pi r squared again. Again, we're going to divide both sides by pi, and we're using that pi that's in your calculator. So divide 96 by pi in your calculator. And once you do that, you're going to get that it is 30.56. Then there should be a squared right here, y'all. So r squared is equal to, so we're going to take the square root of both sides of this again. That gives us r is equal to, I don't remember, but we're going to put it up here. So it's 5.53. Now that's the radius. And this one also asks us for the diameter. Now we know that the diameter is twice the radius, so we're going to do 2 times 5.53 to get the diameter. And that is 11.06. All right, now this last one. Just find the area of the circle with a circumference of 22 pi. So circumference is 22 pi. So we're looking for that circumference formula. It is on your formula sheet above where area is. So this is your formula. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Now we know that the circumference is 22 pi, so we're going to put that in for the C right here. So we're going to say 22 pi is equal to 2 pi r. We're going to divide both sides by 2 pi and 2 pi. That's going to cancel our pi's out right here. That's gone. That's gone. Our 2's gone from there. Our 2's gone from there. Pi's gone from there. Pi's gone from there. So we just have 22 divided by 2. That's going to equal our r. So that's 11. Then we're going to plug that r back in. So again, if you recall, I said to make sure we square this first, area is equal to 2 is equal to pi r squared. So 11 squared is 121. So that's going to be 121 pi, and then we're going to multiply that by pi to get our other answer, which is 380.13. And we didn't have a unit on this one, so we're good to go.